Hi everyone, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel, Cle Elum in Washington. We're continuing today our study called Walking Worthy in Marriage, focusing on Ephesians 5:31 to 33, where the Apostle Paul summarizes the principles that he's been teaching in the last several verses as he's talked to both the husbands and the wives. First, let's read the passage, starting in verse 31. For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. In these verses, we see Paul's prescription for how to have an everlasting marital love. Paul talks about four things that should be part of every marriage if it's going to last, grow, and be full of love and life. The first one, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, was the distinctive of separation. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. The second one, which we covered last week, was the distinctive of perpetuity, or cleaving together. If you missed those, you might want to go back and listen to get caught up. The third distinctive Paul mentions is in verse 31, and the two shall become one flesh. This is what I call the distinctive of unity. In Mark 10, Jesus told us more about how this unity works. In verse 6 of Mark 10, he says, But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Now, by adding a detail that neither Paul nor Moses mentioned, Jesus now broadens the overall picture. God said, I will make them male and female at the beginning of creation. Take note that he intentionally created them as unique and distinct and contrasting sexes. This was not some extra reflection based on further thought on God's part. That one fantastic truth was the focus of the entire creative process, which started on the first day of creation. Among the animals, he made them both male and female, and then he did the same thing for humans. And God defined marriage to be between a man and a woman. He intended to accomplish this by combining two beings that were physiologically and mentally distinct from one another. That combination or oneness would be a picture of Christ and the church. As the Lord said, they are no longer two, but one. We're talking about a unity that takes place physically in the sexual relationship, also a unity that takes place emotionally as their hearts are joined together. Peter Marshall described marriage as the fusion of two hearts and the union of two lives, the coming together of two tributaries which, after being joined in marriage, will flow in the same channel, in the same direction, carrying the same burdens of responsibility and obligation. There's a unity in goals. The two people start approaching life from the perspective of how it affects them both. There's a unity spiritually that takes place. There's a change happening so that these two people who are so different become more alike. The end game is to make each become more like Jesus. Now, from Paul's point of view, this oneness happens right away. The two become one, he says. But in day-to-day life, the Father helps the man and woman become one over the course of their lives. It really takes a lifetime for two people to give up their desires and their lives to God and to one another so that He can make them into the people that He wants them to be. In marriages that are going in the right direction, things really start to shine. These two people begin to think alike in many ways. They begin to talk alike and act alike in other ways. But more often than not, it's each one yielding their own selfish desires to conform to what they think their spouse would prefer instead of insisting on their own way. Jesus is portraying a union that can only be achieved by His working in two lives that are fully surrendered to Him. He takes those two lives from different backgrounds, different families, different personalities, different temperaments, different scars, different feelings, different educational backgrounds, different gifts, and different talents. Under his care and his guidance, their individual lives are blended into a whole that is actually more than the sum of its parts. So please join me next week as we talk about the last and the final distinctive of a godly marriage, which is the distinctive of intimacy. Please come back next week for that. So once again, I hope this has been an encouragement to you. If it has, would you do me a favor? Click the like button, maybe share an encouraging word in the comments section. And please, would you share this with somebody that you think might benefit from it? If you're watching on the Calvary Chapel Cle Elum YouTube channel, would you subscribe to our channel? And if you're in the Cle Elum area and you don't have a home church, would you consider joining us on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 417 East Railroad Avenue in Cle Elum, Washington? Again, this is Pastor Dan from Calvary Chapel Cle Elum. Thank you so much for joining me today. May God bless you and keep you. And until we're able to get together next week, my prayer is that we husbands and wives will be more consistent in walking according to the plan that God has for each of us. In Jesus' name.